It's not often these days that you look at a video game and wonder how on earth it was achieved. Miracles become mundane in an age of miracles, I guess. Way back in the days where the idea of photorealistic video game graphics were the stuff of science fiction, game developers would often try to get within 3 football fields of it via innovative, unconventional means that they often had to invent. Like how Mortal Kombat, for example, blew us all away in the 90s with its highly realistic graphics made from digitized real people. I mean, yeah, it looks crap now, but back in the day, this was mind-blowing. And they could do clever things like make a stop-motion character with 4 arms and have him interact with all the other characters at the same scale. Yes, even though it seems entirely incongruous given that stop-motion animation is an old thing and video games are a new thing, only one of those statements is actually true. The two things have had a very long and productive relationship, and it's wonderful to see it somewhat continuing with games like Throwback and Halibut, where every object, person, set in the world has been handcrafted by human people with human inconsistencies and human imperfections that are infused in the work. And this is what makes Halibut beautiful, and it's something that is very, very difficult to simulate if you're doing 3D modeling in the computer from scratch. I guess what I love about this game the most is that it's been made in the only way it could possibly have been made, and shot through the whole thing is this unwavering commitment to its aesthetic, an aesthetic that absolutely serves the story. This is a dilapidated spaceship / space station that has been trapped underneath an alien ocean for centuries and is, as a result, a bit knackered, a bit warped, a bit dirty, a bit on the wobbly side of things, frankly. If they ever do a Red Dwarf video game, I reckon this is how they should do it. The ocean-bound makeshift city of Fedora feels like a place that has been occupied for much longer than it was ever intended to be. And like people living in a small flat that they've outgrown but can't afford to move away from, he said semi-autobiographically, the occupants have just had to make do. And you see this in everything. Almost every room feels like it's fulfilling a purpose it was never intended for. It's a beautiful game in its own way, but it's stifling and oppressive. And you're meant to feel stifled and oppressed because you're playing someone who is perennially treated like an idiot and taken for granted by people who nonetheless keep taking advantage of you and don't seem like they'd be able to function if they weren't constantly taking advantage of you. Referring to Halibut as stop motion is a bit of a misnomer anyway. Stop motion is a way of achieving animation. It's not an art style. It's just one that lends itself to this hand-sculpted look for obvious reasons. Halibut is actually very beautifully and smoothly animated. When I first saw it, I assumed it was one of those sort of FMV things where they've done stop motion in camera and then built the game around that, but actually, though everything has been hand-built, it's been scanned photogrammetrically.
Come on, spit it out, man!
In painstaking detail to preserve every single one of those little human touches, and then animated in the traditional way, or untraditional way, depending on your outlook. I'm pretty sure they're using digital acting and motion capture here, and building the scenes in this way allows them to do these wonderful sweeping camera moves that would just be impossible to do in an interactive medium if you were doing everything in camera. And so the game is constructed in a beautifully handmade way, but animated in a beautifully modern way, which creates this hybrid art style that brilliantly, I think, achieves photorealism but on a miniature scale, on a tilt-shifted scale, and with no risk whatsoever of descending into the uncanny valley. I think this game is a marvellous achievement. There is one concession to actual stop-motion animation in the lip-syncing, which is very staccato and deliberately made to look hand-animated. I suspect that each mouth shape here and possibly a bunch of different facial expressions have been handmade, scanned individually, and then the animation system is sort of switching between them very quickly in order to achieve the lip-sync animations. Maybe, I'm not sure, but either way, it's a brilliant effect, it's a brilliant trick, and I think everyone should check this game out because I think even the visuals on their own are worth the price of admission. But there's also some lovely writing in here. It's a genuinely funny game, it's a genuinely poignant game. There is a lot of back and forth, and I would say that as a game, it's not exactly very complex or challenging. It's very linear, it's very go here, do this, click the button on the thing. It's tempting to look at it and assume that it's the heir to, the LucasArts games of old or something like that, but it really isn't. It's frankly too straightforward to be anything like those. But it's an engrossing science fiction comedy drama with spectacularly good visuals that make it something you've just never experienced anywhere else. It's a bit like Kane and Lynch 2 Dog Days in that way. But unlike Kane and Lynch 2 Dog Days, everyone's generally quite nice to each other in this world, so it's a pretty good palate cleanser if you've been on a Fallout kick recently, you know? You might get patronised, but nobody's out to get you. And considering we live in an era where everyone's out to fucking get you all the time, that counts as the only form of escapism going these days.